righty there.
Ooh!
Okay, so I disappeared. Phone dropped. Okay, so we have exactly half an hour, and I have my précis here.
Yes.
And I'll get through it. I should warn I usually try to read these things at least twice, but this week's been condensed, suppressed, oppressed, so I've only been able to read it once. So when writing fiction, an author better have a good reason for their choices. I'll start it again. When writing fiction, an author better have a good reason for their choices they make, as the confines of the medium demand it. There isn't the space for metaphors that do nothing but create a pretty picture, or the inclusion of characters because you like the way they talk. Switzerland by Nicole Krauss is a damn fine example of this. So often for this show, The New Yorker has offered up unfinished bits of stories hacked from forthcoming novels for us to be bored over, but that is not the case with today's story. It's a complete package from first word to final period. It comes at you fast and hard with details in the first-person narrative told by a woman who's in her 40s about the time she was 13 living in a sort of boarding house in Switzerland with two older teenage girls. They're 18, Marie from Thailand and Sora, a Persian from Paris. The nameless narrator tells of her year living in that house with two older girls who were moved there by their families to try and calm their wild ways. And they tell the narrator of their sexcapades, who doesn't exactly understand the gravity of them due to being 13. Sora's dating men and some boys her age while in Switzerland, but you get the sense that it isn't necessarily in the pursuit of like relationship or companionship, but for some sort of like challenge. She then tells the narrator that one day, while out to lunch with family, a businessman leaves her a 500 franc note on her table with his hotel room on it, and she actually goes to, I think it's a franc, I don't remember the currency, and she goes to see him. She strikes up a relationship that hints of violence with this businessman, and he leaves her instructions at the front desk at the hotel for her to follow, and he pays her for it. It doesn't feel like prostitution, but that's essentially what it is. One day, she doesn't come home. She is lost for 2 nights, and when she finally does return back to the Swiss house, her makeup is smeared. Her father, who is like the former civil engineer, some sort of professional under the Shah, her father takes her presumably back to Paris, and the narrator never sees her again. Except for the story comes back to her because of her daughter. She has a 12-year daughter, and she sees Sora in her daughter. The same understanding of power that, and the story is essentially about this challenge that Sora embodies. The same understanding of the power some women have over men. Sorry, I messed it up. I wrote this quickly. So she sees in her daughter this understanding of the power some women have over men, and her pubescent daughter. There's a naivety to the narrator, even in her 40s, that I find refreshing and applaud the writer for being able to pull off. She sees the attitude of Sora, that of her daughter, pushing the limits of their power to see how far it can go. Right. On this episode of Boozing Through New Yorker, her eyes were winged with eyeliner, and she had a downy mustache that she made no effort to conceal, because she must have known that it added to her allure. Switzerland by Nicole Krauss. Nicole Krauss. Nicole Krauss. Now, it was the daughter at the end that sold it for me.
The story ended strong. It started off really good too. It's been 30 years since I've seen Soraya. It's like, nice. All right, well done. Good start. Took about 20 minutes of tacky exposition where there's not a single memorable line in the entire work.
Oh, the beginning stuff.
Just all the exposition. I put it down, and I said at one point, I don't have time for this.
That's interesting.
I don't have time for this. Stop it. Stop it. Stop painting these scenes of casual wealth, and I don't want to hear it. In other words, it's like I'm being led by a snobby docent through the breakers, like one of these Vanderbilt mansions in Newport. Like I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh God, can we just get to getting to the main loggia, please, so I can look out at the sea?
That
It's
bothered
just,
me too. That like
oh
I
God,
don't want to read about rich people who have kids in Switzerland generally.
yeah.
Like I don't give a damn about their trials and tribulations of dealing with so much. Oh, and yeah, oh, I have company. Oh, hold
Oh,
on one
nice.
second.
Yeah, sure.
Outside? Medicine. Oh, then I'll get something back. Yeah, 10. Come here back. Jeez Louise. I don't usually have people come here. Anyways, so 10. Oh, fuck off, 10.
Oh God, that fucking dog.
I know.
Fucking-
So okay, so we have back Bali
oh, that
Bali.
dog.
Um, what was it? Yeah, I don't care about this generally speaking, and I usually don't care about power games. Like
Mm.
like the story that I see a lot of young female writers write often enough. Not every single one of them is about like a student seducing a teacher. There's a lot of this sex power play I've noticed in years ago when I was in creative writing at university, and this kind of deals with that a little bit too, but it's not the same in my opinion. It's more personal, and it's not
Yeah.
just about the fun of it, or like the interest or the sex, the titillation of it. There's more about self exploration in it that I thought was, I learned from it. It was from somebody who really understood what this would feel like that I'm not privy to,
Mm-hmm.
and what it might be
Right.
like. And I thought that was I like that.
Well, it's just curious too that it's sexuality apparently for it to be interesting in literary fiction is for it to be venal or
Uh-huh.
pathetic. Venal or pathetic. Like it's not
Do you have an
the
example?
one. Well, in this story,
Right.
for instance, the protagonist eventually gets married and has two kids, and
Uh-huh.
all that we know about the man she chooses is the color of his hair. But
And that he's
we know that
gentle.
this okay, this venal, corrupt, abusive, philandering, pedophilic banker.
Mm.
We know all about him. We hear all about, or and then we have these pathetic, lovelorn, exchange students who don't kiss right, or who, they aren't what the girls think. It's like there's just no. What's amazing about the thing is that how casually we're introduced to how fucked up young girls are actually. Like we're magnetized toward the banker because what he's doing is so obviously corrupt and wrong.
Right.
But it's the girls who are sick too, and like they're just so sick. Like, but it's natural. It's portrayed as just something that happens.
Uh-huh.
I think Nicole Krauss's intention was for us to look at the violence inherent in the male gaze and male desire. But by the end of the story, I'm left with the uncomfortable feeling that it's the point of it is how women invited to sharpen their own tool knives in their drawer to make themselves like you're a young woman.
Stop.
You have an inner fire. You have a directedness. Men look at you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're a woman, you're attractive in whatever way. Then men look at you and they want to fuck you. So now you have essentially two choices. One, the protagonist way, which is to run away from it and hide. Or two, which is Soraya's way, which is to hold your head high, thrust your shoulders back, and to just take it,
To hone yourself by
right?
it. Yeah.
Hone yourself. Like, do your best. Bite me. You're just a kitten, after all. You look like a saber-toothed tiger. You look like a fierce predator. You can beat me. You can fuck me in the ass. You can tie me up. You can gag me. You can make me call your wife up and pretend to be, somebody, whatever. But in effect, you're just a kitten. You can't hurt me. And that's an interesting takeaway. I mean, and I don't think I make that. I don't think I say that lightly. I think the story really invites you to think that way.
Hmm.
Like, what is it about that Soraya that makes the protagonist think about her 30 years later to, in fact, kind of not search for her in Paris as a 20-something-year-old, but to at least be in her imagined proximity?
Right.
What is it? It's this idea that you know, which is, again, I don't even know if this is a correct characterization, but give me your best shot, men. I can take it. And in fact, you're much less than my worst fears. And it's just a very interesting perspective, you know, that I've been hit on by gay men, for instance. I was never afraid of them, but women are often afraid of the men who hit. Not often, but they can be afraid of the men who hit on them. And it's the same thing. It's a man hitting on someone, and in this case, another man. In my case, right? But I'm 6'3", 240 pounds. And throughout my life, I've been 6'3", anywhere from 6'3", 170 to 6'3", 240, which I am now. And I was never afraid, at least not in a physical sense.
Right. You
I was
didn't think you would be
no.
threatened.
I didn't think they. I
Injured.
didn't think they had any chance beating me up and raping me. In other
Right.
words, but I've talked to many women about this, in fact, because it's a fascinating subject for me. And it's this idea that, yeah, of course we go to the bathroom in pairs. We just never know when one ears are going to come out of the woodwork. Like, and it's just Jesus Christ. Okay. But it's interesting that in this story, like almost every male character is either a sick pedophilic madman or a mopey dopey loser, who doesn't kiss right or whatever. And it's just so interesting. It's like, well, what are we saying here? It seems that the protagonist wishes she could take a beating. And I was like, God damn, that's a hell of a fucking thesis. If I'm probably wrong, but and
I
of
didn't
course,
take that away from it. That's really.
what'd you take away? What'd you take
I
away?
mean, well, for one, I focused a lot on the construction of it, and I like the exploration of, because she says at the end that she kind of envies her daughter, right? Like she
Right.
envies the look. But what she's saying is she envies Sora's strength in a way, and I thought that was an interesting naivete, because we don't actually know what happened in those 2 days that they were gone, and I think
Wasn't
that's
anything good.
important. No, it wasn't
Wasn't anything
anything
good.
good, but because she touched her, she has this idea that she wasn't broken by what happened, and
Right.
there's it's framed as the first interaction really with a man is she is 13 on the streets of Geneva, and a man just comes up to her and says, "I could break you in half," and that's
Yeah, that
kind
was
of
fucking crazy.
yeah,
And I told it's 100% real.
yeah.
Men say that kind of shit all the fucking time, thinking
Uh,
they can get away with it, thinking that there's just no, yeah,
she said
to
that
a little girl too,
this
to a
is
little
based.
girl, like
That's awful. Imagine doing that to going up to anybody,
pigs.
let
We're
alone a
pigs. Men are,
13-year-old.
whether you're gay or straight, men are absolute pigs,
Yeah.
and we are by nature, and it's just no. But talking to you now reminds me that this story does have a classical antecedent. But it's delightfully subversive,
Mm.
even though it is. I still think it's more boring than it needs to be at times, but it does have as like the idea of a young hero going into a dragon's lair, isn't it?
I was thinking of the story that you really liked when we did this.
Mm.
The one that took place in Africa, but
Mm.
and I was thinking of that, the going through the crucible,
One,
and either you
yeah.
come back stronger or you come back broken.
Hmm. Yes, you what I really don't like about this story though is that we don't so Soraya goes into the dragon's lair more than once,
She tempts it.
and and she finally confronts him, as it were, like she pisses him off by not leaving when his wife calls,
Uh-huh.
and in a sense mocking him. So he does something nasty to her, awful that we don't know. And she comes back, disheveled but alive and proud.
Uh-huh.
But we don't know what happens after that. Like what's the point of this? I mean, this is the thing, are the characters just not so pathetic? Like just these rich, sheltered fuck ups who they gallivant around as if they smoke, they fuck. They're just
Yeah,
sassy rich bitches. They're just fucking.
that
They're
takes from
rich
it, right?
jerks. Like, and they flirt with danger, and one of them finally gets in trouble for it. She thankfully survives. We don't know what the whole point of it was. There's no lesson gleaned from it.
Mm.
It just makes the protagonist jealous and confused. Oh, great. Okay. So what? Who gives a fuck? I didn't like this character to begin with. I don't like this protagonist. She's a rich, unconscious fucking bitch.
So,
What do I care? What do I care? Like, I don't understand. Like, are you trying to say that men are raping crazy people? Okay. Are you trying to say that it's important for us to face our fears?
uh-huh.
Okay. So what? What we're left with is at the very last paragraph, we have this weirdly pedophilic segment
Mm.
where it's like this 12-year-old girl is like sitting up straight and taunting some pervert by staring back at him without looking away on the subway. I don't what's the
Mm.
point? I don't understand what the point is. That's why I was left with the only conclusion is like, well, do we run away from raping perverts, or do we let them rape and beat us and then we hope we survive stronger? Like I don't understand what the point of
Okay.
the story is. It's a very odd. First of all, it's just
Mm.
not true. It's just not true that men are either losers or maniacs. It's just not true.
It's fun. Because it's a short, I didn't take away the fact that men are either one or the other, right? Because
There's just no other men, though. Well, there's a father. There's a
there's a
father. I'm not.
father,
Yeah, that's.
and the boy that she kisses, she's the violent one, not him, and she ignores his gaze at the end in the hallway. There's a
Yeah,
point in the
because
story, yeah,
he's a. Yeah, he's
and
sad.
and she says that she picks gentle men who are afraid of her a little, right?
Right.
And
Right.
I think that because it's a short story, you have to leave out things that, like aren't necessary, I guess, right? Or maybe not necessary. You have to pick and choose, right? So the men that she includes are all these violent men, but I didn't leave the story thinking that she thought all men were violent because she gets married quicker than she has a bunch of boyfriends afterwards, marries
Yeah,
sooner than she intended, had two kids, one right after the other.
that's
And
true. That's true. There are quite a lot of men in the background who aren't so bad.
yeah,
Yeah, or aren't pathetic either. They're just kind of
mm,
normal, I
and while she
guess.
tries to live like Sora, she says, I've done these things. I took these risks with men that I wouldn't have if I didn't know her. And not all of them were that. One, kind of lunged at her, and another one was like, why are you going to some guy's house you've just met and you didn't know their name of? Like, what are you like? if I remember correctly. There was something like
Yeah,
that.
but I think this is yeah, I think that's the same guy though. I think he
Oh, it might
he
be.
was another creep. He was another creep.
Uh,
Like, why are you alone with me? And she's like, oh God. So as soon as she got out of the truck, she did, and she ran up to her apartment.
uh,
Um, and I could be wrong. I could be, you know, I can imagine that a rebuttal would be, yeah, a lot of men are this crazy. I've been with 20 guys and 15 of them were aggressive and crazy. Shit, I don't think your experience is normal though. I think that most times straight people interact, it's usually just no chemistry or one tires of the other. There's
how?
it's no like grabbing of wrists and
Mm.
I'm gonna finger blast you, the fucking some rich guy, propositioning a girl half his age.
It is
It's not
Switzerland, so it's
normal.
weird. It's a weird place, right? Like, she refers to it as a sanitarium, and it's a place of many languages that's a haven for rich people, criminals. Like, where do you think the Kim Jong Un would send his offspring? Where did Kim Jong Un go? He went to
There
Switzerland
you
for
go.
school, right?
Went to Basel, I think, or something like that. Yeah.
Which is where they live in the story. Though she goes to school and her family lives in Basel. She goes
Genève.
to school
Yeah.
in Geneva or whatever it is.
Shiva.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
it's interesting that you mentioned the wealth, because that is such a problem with
Oh,
books for me nowadays, right? Like,
Steve.
why do I care? What if this story took place in, let's say, Harlem, and as opposed to rich people, it was uh people who came from hard families that are working hard just to make ends meet, and the children in this area are, as opposed to living in a house where they go to school, they are like kids that are under parents that hang out together in the streets, where men from the city
Yep.
come to prey
Yeah,
upon
some
them.
white banker puts a $500 on this black waitress's, table, as it were, and
Mm.
with an address. It would be a lot different.
But
It'd
you
be a
could
lot
still have
different.
the same
She'd have
issue
she'd have to
of
go to this
power.
hotel room. Yeah, yeah, it'd be a lot different, you know.
Mm.
And you just imagine too that you know these to consider the motivation for a poor black teenager to go downtown
Mm.
to get sodomized or hung upside down and burned with candles, whatever the fuck was going on in that hotel room, this depraved bastard was doing. She'd have to do it because she needed the money. In this case,
She didn't need the
we
money. She
just
was fucking
we have an
loaded.
almost inexplicable young woman
Mm.
testing her powers for reasons she might not even understand.
You never met a
You
girl
know?
that was interested in like these types of situations? I
Oh,
have.
sure,
I have
yeah,
met girls that were interested in, who would see that situation, who, if that happened to her, she may consider taking the 500 bill just for just as, out of curiosity, out of the,
right.
out of the
You follow, you
what's
take your
going on.
full measure, you follow through to the end. Yeah, but I just wish that there was some kind of. I just wish that maybe I'm old fashioned, but I wish there was some kind of conclusion aside from the obvious one where we have the protagonist is basically raising
Mm.
her old friend. Like, oh, my own daughter's like this now. Goddamn. So it's like this. I just don't. I finished the story. I'm like, yeah, well, so what? Like, I just don't know what is being said here.
Mm.
And again, my only conclusion is that young women have a choice. If you're an attractive young woman, you have a choice. You either run away from the rapist until you find the right person,
Mm.
or you face him down. You face him down. You insist on your pride. You know, And it's an interesting thing to consider that an attractive young woman has no choice but to be that. So it's like you're a light.
That's
A young woman is almost like a light shining, and she's illuminating her surroundings and making her surroundings nicer. But she can't help but be noticed. Yeah, she can try to wear sweatpants and she can wear a hat low over her eyes, but she's a light. Maybe that's the point of the story. Like, young ladies, you're a light. Like, you have to be conscious of how ugly it can get out there. You have to know how bad it can get. You have to know that there are married rich men who want to pervert you precisely because there's nothing you can do about it. You have to realize that there are men out there who are dressed well and they speak well and they'll whisper in your ear, I could break you in half with one hand. Right? Maybe that's it. Like attractive young women, you have no choice but to be noticed. So how are you going to handle it?
The evidence against that in the book is in the last, and I mean, maybe not evidence against it, but in the end of the story, she says that her daughter has black hair, green eyes, almost by her own will. Like she almost will, like, we don't pick our looks, like how we look is what she says, but her daughter, it's like her daughter almost picked what she looked like because she understood because of the effect it will have. Am I summarizing it correct?
Maybe you're just asking for trouble then. I mean, I don't like that because for a white male to say that about it, I just sound like, you women are asking for it. It just doesn't sound good when a white guy says it. But maybe if the text and author intentionality kind of enforces or reinforces your reading of it, then I don't have the balls to repeat it. We'll put it that way.
Okay. Well, I don't know if
I've already said rich bitch. I'm already in trouble. Yeah.
I don't think it's as concrete as you say it is necessarily, but I could be wishful thinking. Like, I don't, just because I like the. Imagine if she didn't end this story with a mention, like, she could have ended it without the child mentioning her daughter, and she could have ended it. And I looked for her once, and then never again. And every once in a while, these mercurial fleetings of Sora pass through my mind, and I wonder. And it could end.
Well, just why not? Sorry, I cut you off before you were done.
No, I was.
Well, just why not have Soraya back in the story? Is it so implausible to have them meet up in Paris when they're both in their 20s? They're rich. They're rich and they're foreign. Of course they're going to bump into each other in Paris. Of course they are.
Right. It's a small circle of rich people.
It's a very small town if you're foreign and rich. It's a very small town indeed. There's a couple of hotels. That's it. Like, it's just not. It's not a giant conurbation when you're rich and foreign. It's a few places. It's like 10 places. I bumped into her in the fucking triangle in front of the Louvre. Yeah, of course you did.
I hate that idea.
Well, I saw her going to the bathroom and fucking in the Ritz-Carlton or whatever the fuck. It's like, it's just, why not have them meet again? You're right, but why have the daughter be the friend? Yeah.
I like that as an ending because it gives it the purpose of why it's being told in a way. Like, why is it being told now? Because it is first person. Right.
Yeah.
And I that's what I liked about the construction of it. The reason why I said I hate that, I just hate the idea of rich people meeting up at fancy fucking hotels. Oh, Wilbur, I haven't seen you so long. What brings you to the plaza in Havana? Good to see you again, old chap. I'll see you next time I'm in Prague. Like, it's just like,
and I guess maybe I'm just sick of rich people as victims. Like I'm just sick of it. Fuck you. You're rich. Leave me. I don't want. I don't want to. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't
No, I
care.
get that. I wholly get
Which
that.
is ironic because one of the books that I wrote that I'm sitting on is the protagonist is the son of a wealthy man. So
Mm.
I'm in effect criticizing my own writing, which is fine with me.
Mm.
But it's just but that leaving the rich part to one side, I really wish that there would have been a greater conclusiveness to the story. But I
Mm.
guess that's how Ms. Nicole Krauss write. I don't know.
I've
I
never
haven't read
heard of
anything
her
else.
before.
I've never. She's
Mm.
apparently written 4 books.
Yeah, I might look her up and see what else she writes. She's written a bit about Tim Philip Roth. She apparently he was a big influence on her. So I'm going to look it up. But next week we'll be doing this bad boy. Hopefully,
Oh,
I barely cracked it.
I
I've
don't
been
know
so
if I'm
busy.
ready to.
I'm on page 40, but I've read it before. So Ken Casey is an interesting dude. I have one of his other books over here too. Sometimes emotion or something. I don't remember. My coffee, I was so strong this morning. I was like, now it's it's fading off.
Yeah.
It's been another episode of Boozin'.
Switzerland.
Switzerland. I'm Darryl. He's Bret. We're boozing. Give us 5 stars. Please, 5 stars. Give them to us. Keep scribbling.